Have you ever wondered why some people spend their entire lives at the same intellectual level, as if their minds stopped developing around the age of 20? Meanwhile, others, even at 70 or 80, shine with new ideas as if they've just begun their journey. Let me tell you a paradox. The body has limits, but the mind can grow endlessly. Yet most people choose to starve it. But you, if you stay with me, will learn how to start feeding your mind so that every new idea becomes a brick in the foundation of your personal philosophy. And at the end, I'll give you practical tools you can apply immediately after this video. So subscribe, because what comes next might just change your intellectual trajectory forever. You know what's most interesting? We all start learning from early childhood. First, we're taught how to walk, then how to read, write, and count. We take exams, earn diplomas, maybe even several. And then, one day, it all seems to end. No one asks us to open a textbook anymore. No one checks our notes. No one says, "Get ready, there's a test tomorrow." And that's when many people make a fatal mistake. They decide their learning curve is complete. They tell themselves, "I'm an adult now, I know enough." But let me ask you, can any of us truly know enough? Can a mind that was discovering new horizons just yesterday suddenly stop and be content with what it already knows? Now imagine the contrast. There are people who live their lives as if their minds froze at the age of 20. Every morning they repeat the same thoughts, the same phrases, the same complaints. They walk in circles, stuck at one level. And even when life throws new challenges their way, they respond with old, outdated answers. But then there are others. There are those who, even at 70, 80, or 90, are glowing with new thoughts, new plans, new ideas. Their minds are flexible, their imagination fresh, their speech alive. They read books, listen to the wise, share with others, engage in debates, and journal their insights. They feed their minds just as we feed our bodies. And their philosophy becomes alive, adaptable, wise. My friend, let me speak directly to you. When was the last time you truly fed your mind? Not just watched the news, not just scrolled through social media, but deliberately opened a book that could expand your worldview. When was the last time you had a conversation not about the weather or grocery prices, but about what shapes life itself, about the kind of ideas that elevate a person above the ordinary? Have you ever woken up and thought, "Today I will discover something new, something that will change my philosophy"? You see, here's the paradox. The body has natural limits. We age, lose strength, health can fail. But the mind has no such limits. The mind can grow until the end of life. Imagine an old tree, its roots deeply planted in the ground. Its trunk is sturdy, its branches heavy, and someone might say, that tree is already mature, it doesn't need anything. But in truth, if its roots stop receiving water, the tree will wither. The same goes for our minds. If we don't nourish them with ideas, they gradually lose strength. They don't stay still, they weaken. Here's another image. Imagine a body that is fed daily with only empty calories, sugar, fat, soda. The person survives, but their health deteriorates. It's the same with the mind. Most people feed it with cheap information, shallow news, endless chatter about trivia. They consume content that builds nothing. It just fills space. And then they wonder, why does life feel empty? Why is there no inspiration? Why don't dreams move forward? The answer is simple. The mind is starving for real ideas. I remember someone once told me, "Jim, if you want to be successful, start collecting good ideas the way some people collect coins or stamps." And that was a revelation, because a good idea can change the direction of your life. It can show a new path where it seemed there was none. It can be that seed that grows into a tree of decisions, habits, and results. So now let me ask you, isn't it time to begin that journey again? Isn't it time to stop feeding your mind with trivialities and start giving it nourishment worthy of building your future? Because life doesn't ask for permission. It moves forward. It unfolds either way. And if we don't fuel our minds, it will unfold randomly. But if we feed it with good ideas, it will unfold with wisdom, strength, and dignity. Today, I invite you on a journey. A journey in search of good ideas that change lives. A journey into the world of philosophy and the kind that shapes our decisions, our actions, our outcomes. And if you stay with me until the end, I'll give you specific tools to start feeding your mind every day, so your learning curve never stops again. Because in the end, there is no greater investment than the investment in your own philosophy. So friends, Let's begin with the first principle. The mind is a garden. You've heard this metaphor before. If you throw garbage into the soil, weeds will grow on their own. But if you tend to it, plant, water, and prune it, you'll harvest fruit. Now imagine your mind. What are you filling it with each day? What kind of food are you feeding it? Because every thought, every book, every conversation becomes a seed. And the question is it a weed seed or a harvest seed? I once realized a simple truth. Life is made up of ideas. Every small idea can become the foundation for a new path. You may have heard my phrase, don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. But where does that wisdom come from? It doesn't come from thin air. It comes from philosophy I built by collecting ideas from books, mentors, and observing people who live with dignity. Now let's look at a typical day. How much time do we spend on empty conversations? How many minutes slip by on social media where the information doesn't enrich us but scatters our attention? Imagine sitting down at a table and instead of food, there's sand. Will you feel nourished? Number. Yet many people feed their minds just like that. They let other people's news, cheap sensations, and negative comments fill their most precious resource, their attention. And then they wonder why they don't have the energy to dream, to plan, to act. I want you to imagine a different picture. You wake up, and instead of the chaotic news feed, you pick up a book, even just a few pages. That's like a glass of pure water for your mind. You listen to an audio program or a seminar, and instead of noise, you get nourishment. You meet someone with whom you can talk about the future, entrepreneurship, culture, ideas, and that becomes a feast for your thinking. This is how a new philosophy is formed. You know, in my youth, I often heard from my mentor, Jim, look for good ideas everywhere. Read the books of those who are no longer with us because their thoughts remain. Churchill is gone, but his books live on. Aristotle is gone, but his ideas are immortal. And he was right. I realized I could talk to the wisest people in history just by opening their books. But friends, that's not enough. Just reading doesn't mean growing. One more thing is needed. Discussing and testing ideas in practice. I've always emphasized having a circle of people who ask the right questions. That's a real treasure, because it's in dialogue that we refine our philosophy. You might read a brilliant thought, but when you discuss it, argue it, weigh the pros and cons, that's when it becomes part of you. Now here's an important point. Why is this especially necessary today? Because we live in a world of information overload, but a shortage of wisdom. Imagine an ocean filled with salt water. You can drink all you want, but your thirst will never be quenched. That's how it is with information. There's an abundance of it, but only certain ideas become water for the soul. And your job is to learn how to choose. I've often said, whether it's a business idea, a product idea, or a personal growth idea, seek it, because every good idea helps improve your philosophy. And this philosophy determines everything, how you view money, family, work, government, love, and culture. Your life isn't random. It always unfolds according to the script of your philosophy. Let me challenge you for a moment. Imagine yourself 10 years from now. Will you be the same person as today, with the same thoughts, the same beliefs, the same limitations? Or will you allow yourself to nourish your mind in a way that in 10 years, you'll be someone of a completely different caliber? Many people don't even realize their thoughts can change their reality, but they can. Let me give you another example. When I was on the farm in my youth, my father often said, Jim, if you don't take care of the field, weeds will grow on their own. It's simple agricultural wisdom, but it applies to the mind too. If you don't feed it with good ideas, doubt, fear, and limitations will grow automatically. That's why so many people, even in their mature years, never rise above mediocrity. Now be honest, do you want to be the person who let weeds take over the whole garden? Or do you want to be the gardener who harvests wisdom year after year? And this is just the beginning. We're only getting started, because next we'll talk about how to turn ideas into action, how to make sure knowledge doesn't just stay on paper or in a book, but becomes part of your life. Because, let's face it, a good idea without application is like a seed left in a sack. It may be great, but it will never grow unless it's planted. And here's a teaser. At the end of this video, I'll give you a specific practice. Simple, but extremely powerful. It will help you feed your mind every day so that your philosophy grows stronger and your life becomes deeper and richer. Friends, let's now look at the next level, because collecting good ideas isn't enough. True transformation begins when you make those ideas part of your daily practice. I've often said, don't work harder on your job, work harder on yourself. Because your job gives you income, but your philosophy gives you your future. When I was young, I worked at an ordinary company. I showed up on time, stayed late, completed every task. And you know what? I was broke. Why? Because I was only working on my job, not on myself. And only when I met my mentor did I hear the words that completely shifted my thinking. Jim, what you have today is a result of who you've become. If you want more, become more. That's when I started filling my mind with new ideas. Not just thoughts about how to make $1 tomorrow, but thoughts about how to become the kind of person who can create value. Think about it for yourself. What are you striving for today? A better career, stronger relationships, more peace of mind? None of this happens by accident. It comes from your philosophy. And philosophy doesn't appear overnight. It grows from the seeds you plant in your mind. I want you to picture this now. A grand hall of mirrors stands before you. In each mirror is a version of you. One shows who you'll become if you stop learning today. Another reflects who you'll be if you keep feeding your mind only with shallow information. But another shows who you could be if you start collecting wise ideas, testing them in life, weaving them into your philosophy. Which version of yourself do you want to meet in 10 or 20 years? Because time will pass either way, but the outcomes will be vastly different. I remember one moment. After a talk, a young man came up to me and said, "Mr. Rohn, I've read dozens of books, but my life hasn't really changed." I smiled and replied, "Friend, books aren't supposed to change your life. They're supposed to change you, and you change your life." That's a critical difference, because we can accumulate information, but unless it becomes part of our philosophy, it remains dead weight. That's why I always recommend keeping a journal. A journal is the laboratory of your mind. It's where you store ideas, test them for strength, and build your personal system. Imagine an architect who dreams of building a beautiful house but has no blueprints. He may have vivid images in his head, but without a plan, nothing will happen. The same goes for your philosophy. When you write down your thoughts, you're drafting the blueprint for your future. Let me offer another image. Imagine boarding a plane. You sit down, settle in, and then hear the pilot say, "We're flying without a plan. We'll just see where the wind takes us." You'd be terrified, right? But that's exactly how many people live their lives. They let circumstances, randomness, and others' opinions steer their course. But the wise, they draw a map, and that map begins with philosophy. Friends, another key point, it's not only what you read or listen to, it's who you talk to. Because the people you spend time with are also food for your mind. If you're constantly surrounded by complaints, negativity, and small thinking, you'll inevitably absorb it. But if you surround yourself with those who think big, who seek opportunity, who aren't afraid to ask big questions, you'll start growing too. That's why I've always said, don't join easy crowds. You won't grow there. Go where the expectations are high, where thinking is deep. Now, friends, here's a crucial question. What happens when your philosophy becomes rich? It begins to shape your future. It changes how you see money, not just as a paycheck, but as a tool. It shapes how you view your family, not just as a place where you take, but where you contribute. It even transforms how you see the world. Like, you stop asking, why is this so hard? And start asking, what can I do to become better? And now let me pose another challenge. Imagine yourself not just as a consumer of ideas, but as a source of ideas for others. Because let's be honest, true learning happens when you share. How many times have you explained something to someone and suddenly understood it more deeply yourself? That's because ideas become part of you when you speak them. So friends, don't stop at reading and listening. Go further. Write, share, debate, teach. Make your mind not just a garden, but a garden with open gates, where others can come and be inspired. And we're still not done. There's yet another level I want to talk about. The level where ideas become habits, where philosophy becomes action. And that's exactly what we'll explore in the next part. And remember, at the end, I'll give you a specific practice, simple yet incredibly effective, to help make this a daily habit. Friends, let's talk about why so many people stop halfway. They hear great ideas, maybe even write them down, perhaps discuss them with friends. But when it comes time to act, nothing changes. Why? Because their philosophy hasn't yet grown into habits. And habit is the bridge between thought and result. I want you to imagine a seed. If it stays in a sack, it can lie there for years, but it won't sprout. If you plant it but don't water it, it will rot. If you water it but don't protect it from weeds, it will be choked out. But when you create the right conditions, that tiny seed grows into a tree. It's the same with ideas. One idea won't change your life, but if it becomes a habit, then it can. I remember once being asked, "Jim, what's the secret to success?" And I answered, "It's in the small things repeated daily. You won't change your life overnight. But if you read 10 pages a day, if you write down just one thought in your journal every day, if you have just one meaningful conversation a day, in a year, you'll be a different person." And that's not a metaphor, it's a law, because small daily disciplines build a great philosophy. Now I want to ask you, what are your daily habits that feed your mind? Do you have even one routine that makes you wiser every day? Because believe me, if your mind isn't growing, it's weakening. There is no stagnation in nature. Everything is either growing or dying. Here's another point. You know what often holds people back? They want big results right away. They say, "I'll read a book and my life will change tomorrow." Or, "I'll start journaling and suddenly I'll be wiser." But that's not how it works. Success isn't one giant leap. It's a series of small steps. You won't notice change tomorrow, but you will notice it a year from now. And that's where faith is needed. Faith in the process, in the ideas, in your own discipline. Think about planting a garden. You don't go out there every day with a ruler to see if the tree has grown a centimeter. If you water it, if you care for it, growth will come. It's the same with your philosophy. Don't chase immediate results. Chase the process, and the results will follow. I once heard a simple but powerful phrase: life doesn't change by chance, but by change in you. And it's true. I've had students ask me, "Jim, what will change my life? This book, this seminar, this trip?" And I always said, no single event will change your life forever. Only what you do every day after that event will. That's why today's video isn't just a conversation, it's an invitation to practice. Let me give you another challenge. Think about the weeds that have already grown in your mind. Maybe they're doubts you repeat every day. "I don't have time. I'm not smart enough. It's too late for me." These are habits too, friends, habits of thinking, and if you don't pull them out, they'll choke any growth. Your job is to pull those weeds daily and replace them with good ideas. Now let's go even deeper. Every one of us has a little inner voice. Some people let it say, "You can't." Others have trained that voice to say, "Try again." The difference between these people is massive, because inner dialogue is also part of your philosophy. If you feed your mind with the right ideas, that voice begins working for you, not against you. And friends, let me remind you of one of my favorite thoughts. Success is not something you pursue. Success is something you attract by the person you become. And the person you become is shaped by your philosophy. Think about it. You want more income, better opportunities, richer relationships. Don't chase them. Become the person they naturally come to. So friends, now we stand on the edge of an important transition. We've learned that the mind needs to be fed with good ideas. We know those ideas need to be discussed, written down, and turned into daily habits. And now one thing remains, to make this process alive and practical. And for that, I've prepared a hands-on session for you. There we'll do a few simple but powerful exercises. They'll help you assess where you are and define where to go next. So stick around, because the next part may just be your launch into a brand new philosophy of life. Friends, it's time to make this part personal. Ideas are great, but without reflection, they stay up in the air. Right now, I want you to literally answer a few questions on the spot without pausing the video. Your answer should be simple, from 1 to 10, where 1 means not at all and 10 means yes. This is one of my strengths. Don't overthink it. Just answer honestly, and notice what that honesty reveals. First question, how are you feeding your mind daily? 1. If most of your day is filled with news, gossip, and random content. 10. If every day you consciously read, listen to, or watch something that shapes your philosophy. This is your brain's diet. Are you consuming junk food, or are you choosing nourishing meals? Second question, do you have a place where you collect your ideas? 1. If your thoughts disappear as quickly as they come. 10. If you keep a journal, notebook, or even a digital file where you store every meaningful idea. Because think of this, a thought is a spark. If you don't catch it, it vanishes, but if you write it down, you've captured fire. Third question, who are you talking to most often? 1, if your circle is filled with complaints, negativity, and trivial talk. 10, if you're surrounded by people who inspire you, ask great questions and expand your thinking, because your environment is the soil for your garden, and if the soil is poor, nothing will grow. Fourth question, what daily habits are strengthening your philosophy? 1, if you have no routines you repeat daily. 10, if you have small consistent practices, reading, writing, reflecting, having meaningful conversations. Remember, success is born from discipline, and discipline is born from habit. Fifth question, how willing are you to pull the weeds from your mind? 1, if you let doubts and fears live inside you for years. 10, if you work every day to replace them with empowering ideas. Because weeds don't remove themselves, you have to pull them, and your hands are your awareness. Friends, these questions are like a mirror. They don't show who you want to be, and they show who you are right now. And maybe that's uncomfortable. That's good, because real growth begins with honesty. I invite you, drop a number in the comments, just one that really hit home, or share which idea in this video became your spark. That will help you, and it'll help others reading along. Because as I've said, real learning happens when we share. And of course, subscribe to the channel, because each time we'll keep feeding our minds with new, valuable ideas. And who knows, maybe the next idea will be the one that changes your life forever. But I want to ask you one more thing. Don't rush to close this video and forget the questions. Come back to them tonight when it's quiet. Take a sheet of paper and honestly write down your answers. You'll be surprised at how clearly it opens your eyes, because friends, success isn't a one-time discovery, it's a process. And today you've taken a small but incredibly important step. Friends, we've walked an important path together. We've talked about the mind as a garden, about ideas as seeds, and about daily disciplines as watering and care. We've touched on the truth that philosophy isn't some abstract word. It's the real script of your life, because every decision, every habit, every action is a reflection of the philosophy you've chosen to nurture. Now, I want you to pause for a moment and imagine your future. Imagine a day when you wake up with a clear mind, filled with wisdom, and a heart grounded in confidence. Picture yourself 10 years from now, not just older, but deeper, stronger, wiser. That is possible, but only if you start feeding your mind today. You know, I've often repeated, build your philosophy, and it will build your life. That's a law you can't escape. If your philosophy is poor, your life will be poor. But if your philosophy is rich, your life will unfold with dignity and abundance. So here's my challenge to you. Be that uncommon person who never stops learning. Feed your mind, seek ideas, share them, turn them into habits. And while others complain about circumstances, you'll be crafting a life by your own design. Remember, we can't control everything that happens around us, but we can always control what we feed our minds. And that changes everything. Friends, let today be the day you decide. No more starvation for the mind. Only ideas that build. Only philosophy that lifts. Only a life that means something. Because in the end, as I love to say, your philosophy will drive your life. So make it worthy of living with every single day.